Tonight, we're exploring the secret connection between every Pokémon region, a global timeline. Thank you to those of you who've been joining us consistently. If you're falling asleep with us tonight, let me know in the comments how many nights in a row you've been here. And if this is your first night, just comment day 1. Now let's get back to the video. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine the world of Pokémon, not as a series of separate games on a shelf, but as a living, breathing planet with a history that spans thousands of years. We often experience these regions in isolation. We start a journey in Pallet Town, we conquer the Elite Four, and then we move on to the next cartridge, the next generation, and the next continent. But what if I told you that every single step you have ever taken, from the snowy peaks of Sinnoh to the sun-drenched beaches of Alola, is part of one singular, massive, and deeply interconnected tapestry? There is a global timeline that binds every legendary encounter, every ancient ruin, and every migration of people into a cohesive story of a world that has faced cataclysms, divine wars, and the slow, steady march of human progress. Tonight, we are stepping away from the frantic pace of the tall grass. We are setting aside our Pokeballs and our competitive strategies to look at the grand design. We are embarking on a journey through the deep lore and geography of the Pokémon world, tracing the invisible threads that connect the first 4 Japanese-inspired regions of Kanto, Johto, Hoenn, and Sinnoh into a singular, unified nation, and exploring how the distant lands of Unova, Kalos, Alola, Galar, and Paldea fit into this global puzzle. This is more than just a map. This is a chronicle of how a world was born from the void, shaped by the hands of ancient deities, and eventually settled by humans who built cities on the bones of giants. The stakes of this journey are higher than any gym badge. Understanding the connection between these regions allows us to see the Pokémon world as it was truly intended to be seen, a place where history matters. When we look at the Synjo ruins, we aren't just looking at a pile of rocks, we are looking at the bridge between the mythology of the Johto region and the creation myths of Sinnoh. When we walk through the streets of Mali City in Alola, we are seeing the literal fingerprints of Kanto and Johto architecture, proof that the world has always been smaller and more connected than the maps might suggest. The mystery lies in the gaps of time. How did the wild, untamed frontier of the Hisuian region, with its dangerous alpha Pokémon and fledgling human settlements in the mid-1800s, transform into the high-tech, industrialized Sinnoh of the modern era? Why did the people of Unova build a buried castle, and what truth or ideal was so powerful that it led to the destruction of an entire ancient kingdom? We are going to explore the geological foundations of this planet. We will see why the first 4 regions share a cultural DNA rooted in the geography of Japan, and how the shift to Unova marked a turning point where the Pokémon world expanded its horizons to the rest of the globe. We will look at the legendary Pokémon not just as powerful creatures to be caught, but as the architects of the environment. From Groudon and Kyogre carving out the land and sea of Hoenn, to Xerneas and Yveltal governing the very cycle of life and death in Kalos, these beings provide the pulse of the world itself. We will uncover the secrets of the Great War in Kalos, the ultimate weapon that changed the nature of evolution forever, and the ancient kings of Galar who stood against the darkest day. This is a long-form exploration designed for those who want to lose themselves in the details. Whether you're settling in for a long night of study, looking for a deep dive to occupy a quiet afternoon, or seeking a calm narrative to guide you into sleep, this journey is for you. We will move slowly, carefully, and thoroughly through every corner of the known world. We will bridge the gap between the ancient past and the cutting-edge present. We will answer the questions of how these cultures traded, how they fought, and how they eventually came to share a common bond through the creatures we call Pokémon. As we begin, forget everything you think you know about regional borders. In the eyes of history, there are no borders, only stories waiting to be told. The wind that blows through the trees of the Viridian forest is the same wind that once carried the seeds of the great tree in Galar. The stars that shine over the ruins of the abyssal ruins in Unova are the same stars that guided the ancient mariners to the shores of Paldea. We are about to map out the soul of a world, so settle in, find your comfort, and let the timeline begin to unfurl. Our journey starts at the very beginning, before the first Pokeball was ever forged, in a time when the world was young and the legends were still walking among us. This is the secret connection between every Pokémon region. This is the global timeline. Did you know that deep within Pokémon Diamond, Pearl and Platinum, Professor Oak drops a bombshell that reshapes everything you thought you knew about the Pokémon world? He casually reveals that Sinnoh, Kanto and Hoenn all belong to one massive unnamed country, a single sovereign nation stretching across what feels like an entire continent. Picture the rugged peaks of Kanto's Indigo Plateau fading into the misty valleys of Johto, where the border between them blurs like a forgotten seam on a vast map. Kanto draws its lifeblood from the Kanto Plain in real-world Japan, that bustling heartland of towering cities and hidden gyms tucked into urban sprawls. Johto, right next door, mirrors the Kansai region's ancient temples and whispering forests, with Ecruteak City's bell tower piercing the sky as if calling out to its neighbour. Travel south across churning seas and you hit Hoenn's volcanic shores, inspired by Kyushu's fiery landscapes, where lava flows meet endless oceans and Team Magma dreams of expanding the land itself. Then north again, far beyond the mainland haze, lies Sinnoh, Hokkaido's chill, wind-swept islands reborn, with Snow Point Temple guarding secrets under eternal frost. These aren't random dots on a Pokémon globe. They're interlocking pieces of a colossal landmass, stitched together by geography that screams unity. Johto hugs Kanto's western edge so tightly that trainers cross between them without a second thought, hopping ferries or soaring on the backs of legendary birds. Hoenn's position, isolated yet accessible by sea routes that echo ancient trade winds, positions it as the southern anchor. Sinnoh floats to the north, but those connections pull taut like hidden undersea cables. Professor Rowan himself hints at surveys linking these lands, and the Pokémon League circuits treat them as extensions of the same competitive empire. Oak's words hit harder when you dig into the dialogue. In the Hall of Fame after your Sinnoh triumph, he leans in close on that flickering screen and says it plain. Sinnoh, together with Kanto and Hoenn, forms part of a much larger country. No name given, just this shadowy overlord nation enveloping them all. Why hide it? Because naming it would crack open the illusion of separate adventures, revealing the grander canvas beneath. Johto slips in by proximity. Its shared waters with Kanto make exclusion impossible. Routes like Vermilion City's port to Olivine scream of a unified trade network, where merchants haul goods from Pallet Town berries to Tianwood's hidden rage candy bars, without passports or borders. This isn't just maps aligning, it's culture bleeding across borders like ink on wet parchment. Kanto's no-nonsense gym challenge ethos echoes in Johto's badge quests, both rooted in that Japanese reverence for discipline and mastery. Hoenn amps it up with primal forces, Groudon and Kyogre clashing in myths that mirror Sinnoh's creation sagas, where Arceus births the world from a single egg. Dialga bends time, Palkia space, and tying into the dimensional rifts that plague Kanto's later crises. Politically, it's a powerhouse block. Elite Four councils in Indigo and Evergrande share philosophies of balance, while Rocket's multinational schemes span from Celadon to Slateport, treating the continent as their playground. Feel the weight of Synjo ruins, that ethereal midpoint hovering between Johto's heart and Sinnoh's ancient wilds. Old verse 12 describes it as a cradle of creation, where the pillars of the world took form, evidence of migrations and myths flowing freely across this unified expanse. Even Alola nods back, with Mali City's architecture screaming Kansai influences, built by exiles from Kanto and Johto, who carried their Shimenawa ropes and festival drums across the waves. These people didn't start from scratch. They transplanted a cultural heartbeat from the mainland core. Generations 1 through 4 knit this block tight, a golden era before the world splinters. Unova crashes in as Generation 5's rebel, its skyscrapers and ideals a deliberate break, the first true outsider continent. But those early 4, they're the bedrock, sharing not just land, but a soul-deep narrative of exploration within boundaries. Gym leaders swap tales at international summits, legendaries guard the same cosmic threads, and that unnamed nation looms as the silent architect, pulling strings from Pallet Town to Sunnyshore City. You sense it in the fog-shrouded routes, the shared cries of Pidgey flocks migrating seasonally, the way a Kanto Pikachu feels at home, charging through Johto's grass. This unified continent theory isn't speculation. It's the glue holding the Pokémon world's foundation firm, a sovereign shadow that Professor Oak illuminated just enough to haunt your dreams. And as we peel back these layers, the ancient heartbeat of Hisui calls louder, setting the stage for Chapter 2, the Hisuian Foundation, where one region's buried past rewrites the timeline for every landmass we've explored. With those ancient ties binding Kanto, Johto, Hoenn, and Sinnoh into one vast unnamed nation spoken of by Professor Oak himself, our gaze now turns northward to the raw cradle of it all. Hisui, the untamed predecessor to modern Sinnoh. This isn't just a distant memory in the Pokémon world. It's the pivotal moment around the mid-1800s when everything changed, marking the true dawn of the era we know today. And picture the rugged expanse of Hokkaido's wild counterpart, where jagged peaks claw at perpetual mists and dense forests swallow entire valleys whole. Hisui pulses with primal fury. Alpha Pokémon roam unchecked, towering over settlers like living mountains, their roars echoing through blizzards that bury trails overnight. Nobles clash in brutal skirmishes, their loyal beasts locked in frenzied battles that leave craters and scorch marks on the earth. Red sky omens hang heavy, whispers of divine wrath from Arceus itself, while spectral forces twist reality in places like the shrouded ruins, where time feels unnaturally thin. Into this chaos steps the Galaxy team, a band of intrepid surveyors dispatched from distant lands to chart the unknown. Led by figures like Commander Kamado, they carve out Jubilife Village from the wilderness, a flickering beacon of wooden longhouses huddled against howling winds, lanterns swaying like fireflies in the endless night. These aren't trainers in the polished sense, they're pioneers etching the first Pokédex entries with quills dipped in fresh ink, their hands calloused from wrestling Starly mid-flight or dodging Ursaring charges. Every step forward demands alliance with the land's ferocity, befriending Rowlet in misty dawns or calming Weirdeer under aurora-lit skies. This mid-1900s frontier isn't mere backdrop, it's the forge of the modern Pokémon era. Here, for the very first time, humans don't just survive alongside Pokémon, they systematically study them. The Galaxy team's core, ecology, medicine, ethnography, dissect the harmony between man and beast, laying the groundwork for leagues, gyms, and professors yet to come. Pokeballs emerge not as factory toys but as handmade marvels, born from aprons woven with Staru fibers and painted with vivid dyes from wild berries. Warden Ingo commands the noble steeds of the wilds, teaching restraint over conquest, while stories of the 10 mysterious sages ripple through campfires, embedding mythology into the collective soul. Feel the shift, though, as order creeps in from the edges. What begins as desperate expeditions, scouts vanishing into fog-shrouded bogs, only to return with tales of Hisuian Zoroark's illusions, evolves into thriving hubs. Obsidian fieldlands bloom with paddies tamed by resilient Pokémon labour. Crimson Mirelands yield medicines that heal entire villages. The Diamond Clan and Pearl Clan, once bitter foes under Volo's shadowy ambitions, find uneasy truce under the survey captain's watchful eye. Lava domes cool into fertile slopes, cobalt coasts harbour safe harbours, and even the frigid alabaster icelands yield to ingeniously carved paths. By the time Hisui's upheavals subside, the space-time rifts sealed, Palkia and Dialga's essences stabilised, the region transforms. Those frontier outposts swell into cities like Orberg and Weilston, their streets paved with the same stone that once crumbled under Rampardos stomps. Gyms rise where clan totems stood, challenging badges forged from the remnants of ancient plates. Sinnoh emerges structured, its mythology codified in the distortion world and the Lake Guardian's serene vigils, a far cry from the lawless gales that once defined every dawn. Yet woven into this foundation lies something profoundly unsettling, an ancient technology that whispers of loops in time itself. The Arc phone clutched by the Galaxy team's leader isn't crude frontier scrap. It's a sleek device humming with otherworldly signals, bridging realms and summoning spectral aids from voids unseen. Forged in an age of wooden carts and lantern oil, it defies logic, channeling energies that echo far beyond the 1800s. Legends murmur of prior civilizations, their echoes resurfacing like Typhlosion's spectral flames, cycles where advanced knowledge rises, falls, and reawakens. Could this be the first hint that Hisui isn't the beginning, but a chapter in an eternal recurrence, where Sinnoh's myths loop back to seed their own origins? As these threads of time tighten, pulling distant regions into sharper focus, we'll uncover the nexus that binds Johto and Sinnoh in ways no map can fully reveal. Stick around for Chapter 3, the Synjo convergence, where ruins half forgotten hold the key to migrations and mysteries that redefine the entire continent. As the dust settled over Hisui's frontier in the mid-1800s, transforming that untamed wilderness into the ordered landscapes of Sinnoh we know today, whispers of older secrets began to surface from the earth itself. Midway between Johto's rolling hills and Sinnoh's frost-bitten shores, hidden in a rift where the continents seem to fold into one another, stand the Synjo ruins, an enigma carved from stone that defies the passage of time. These ruins aren't just scattered pillars or forgotten altars, they're a vast, labyrinthine complex, and etched with murals that pulse with otherworldly energy, their walls humming faintly when Dialga or Palkia draw near. Explorers who stumble upon them speak of air thick with static, floors that shift like breathing lungs, and inscriptions in a tongue older than the stars. Positioned precisely between the heartlands of Johto and the northern wilds of Sinnoh, they mark a geographical fulcrum, a place where the landmasses of our unified Pokémon world converge. Professor Rowan once speculated that tectonic forces, guided by legendary hands, pushed these regions together eons ago, leaving Synjo as the scarred weld between them. But step closer and the architecture reveals its true puzzle. The central chamber forms a perfect dial, a circular arena ringed by 13 spires, each aligned to a constellation visible only from Hisui's ancient skies. These aren't random, they're calibrated to channel distortion energy, warping space itself during certain lunar phases. In the games, when you activate the ruins with the adamant, lustrous and griseous orbs, pillars rise from the ground, summoning echoes of creation. The layout mirrors the spear pillar up north, yet inverted, like a shadow cast southward. Johto scholars note similarities to the ruins of Alph, those puzzle boxes riddled with unowned script, suggesting the same masons roamed both lands, bridging central plains with northern reaches. Feel the weight of that connection as you trace the faded reliefs. Here, amid swirling vortices of etched plasma, Arceus looms largest, not as a distant god, but as the architect of Genesis. The murals depict the alpha Pokémon descending in a blaze of plates, each one slotting into place, like keys to unlock reality. From its formless core, it births the Dragon Trio. Dialga, the steel-clad sovereign of time. Its body, a forge of ticking gears and relentless flow. Palkia, pearl-armoured master of space, folding dimensions with a claw's flick. And Giratina, the shadowed renegade, twisted through the distortion world to balance their dominion. This isn't mere legend, it's ritual, encoded in the ruins' very geometry. Picture the ceremony unfolding before your eyes, though no eye could have witnessed it. Arceus hovers at the dial's heart, plates shimmering through types, steel for Dialga's epical pulse, dragon for Palkia's boundless expanse, ghost for Giratina's abyssal exile. The spires ignite in sequence, 13 beams converging to tear open the veil, energy cascades like molten rivers, coalescing into the trio's forms amid thunderous roars that echo across continents. Why here, in Synjo? Because this convergence point amplifies Arceus's will, a natural nexus where time, space, and antimatter intersect. The Dragon Trio emerge not as rivals, but as siblings forged in synchronized birth, their essences intertwined to stabilize the newborn world. This ritual binds more than legendaries, it threads the faiths of distant peoples. The northern folk of Hisui, those galaxy team pioneers who chronicled Arceus as the root of all, share hymns with Johto's central mainlanders. In Ecruteak City's bell tower, guardians still chant of the Rainbow Wing, a relic said to summon a guardian akin to Ho-Oh, yet whispers link it to Sinnoh's creation myths. Brass tower tales speak of a shadowed fall, mirroring Giratina's banishment. Travel south to the mainland's core, and you'll find Ilex forest shrines etched with plates resembling Arceus's own, offered by migrants who fled Hisuian upheavals. Archaeologists unearth pottery shards in Synjo bearing the same noble crests as Johto's ancient kings. Dragons coiled around hourglasses, pearls cradled in spectral claws. These aren't coincidences, they're proof of shared religious ancestry. Northern shamans post-Hisui migrated southward, carrying scrolls of the convergence rite. They intermingled with Johto's clans, blending Arceus worship with Lugia and Ho-Oh's dual guardianship. The result? A unified theology pulsing through the landmass, from Hokkaido-inspired tundras to Kansai's misty vales. Even Professor Oak's hidden dialogue nods to this, placing Sinnoh, Johto, Kanto and Hoenn under one sovereign banner, their gods born from the same altar. Delve deeper into the murals, and subtleties emerge that chill the spine. One panel shows human figures, robed priests from both north and centre, kneeling as the Dragon Trio take form. Their hands clasp orbs, channeling the energy, suggesting mortals midwifed creation itself. Was this the origin of Pokémon partnership? Not the wild bonds of Hisui's surveys, but a deliberate rite, predating even the mid-1800s. Synjo's stones hold residual power. Trainers report wild Pokémon gathering here during meteor showers, drawn by ancestral pull. The ruins' mystery thickens with their inaccessibility. No map marks them permanently. They phase in and out, visible only when the trio's plates align. This ties back to the land's unification. As Hisui tamed into Sinnoh, ancient barriers weakened, exposing these relics. Johto elders warn of the convergence's hunger, a force that could unravel the dial if disturbed, merging regions anew in cataclysm. Yet it endures, a silent witness to Arceus's grand design. Evidence mounts from every angle. In Pokémon Platinum's postgame, Arceus invokes Synjo to remake the universe, only for the trio to reaffirm their balance. The event's mechanics, summoning Arceus via plates, reenact the ritual, with ruins as the stage. Johto's proximity explains cultural bleed. Burned tower legends echo Giratina's rage, while Lake of Rage sightings hint at Palkia's spatial tears. Northern and central peoples, once divided by wild seas, converged here in faith, their temples mirroring Synjo's dial, from Kalosian ruins unknown puzzles to Whirl Island's Lugia shrines. This shared ancestry isn't abstract, it's the spine of our Pokémon world. Priests from Hisui's clans sailed south, founding Johto's dance theatres, where masked performers reenact the trio's birth. Artifacts like the clear bell rung to summon Suicune carry Sinnoh's chill resonance. A DNA analysis on ruin-preserved relics, if such tech existed, would show mingled bloodlines, northern hardy stock fused with mainland ingenuity. As Synjo's secrets bind north to centre, pulling Johto and Sinnoh into one mythic tapestry, we edge toward the sparks that ignited Kanto's own transformation. In Chapter 4, Kanto's Industrial Revolution, you'll uncover how smokestacks rose amid these ancient echoes, reshaping the mainland's heart into a powerhouse that echoed across the continent. What hidden gears turned there, linking factory whistles to the Dragon Trio's timeless tick? Stay with me, you won't want to miss it. As the echoes of those Synjo rituals faded, binding Arceus to the birth of the Dragon Trio across vast distances, the world of Pokémon didn't stand still. Time pulled us forward, hurtling past the untamed wilds of Hisui into the smoke-filled skies of a new century. By 1996, Kanto had ignited its own revolution, one forged not in divine myths, but in the hum of factories and the glow of laboratory lights. Picture the sprawling metropolis of Saffron City, where steel girders pierced the clouds and conveyor belts whispered promises of progress. This was the cradle of Silph Company, a behemoth rising from modest workshops in the post-Hisui era. Founded in the shadow of Professor Oak's early research outposts, Silph didn't just build tools, they redefined the bond between human and Pokémon. Their engineers, drawing from ancient Pokeball designs unearthed in Sinnoh digs, perfected mass production. Suddenly, every trainer from the frozen tundras of Sinnoh to the volcanic shores of Hoenn could carry dozens of companions in capsules no larger than a fist. Pokeballs weren't novelties anymore. They were the lifeblood of a global economy, shipped by the millions from Kanto's ports. You can almost hear the clank of assembly lines in Celadon City, where prototypes for the Pokémon storage system first took shape. Silph technicians laboured through sleepless nights, linking rudimentary computers to ethereal waves. Those invisible threads Professor Rowan would later theorise connected all life forms. By 1996, the PC network was live, a digital web spanning continents. A Pikachu captured in the Viridian Forest could be swapped for a Tauros from Johto's plains with a single button press. Kanto wasn't just innovating, Hisui was wiring the world together, turning scattered regions into a synchronized machine. And why Kanto, you might wonder, as the unchallenged hub? It boils down to geography and grit. Nestled at the heart of that unnamed sovereign nation, Professor Oak whispered about, the one binding Kanto, Johto, Hoenn and Sinnoh, Kanto's position was unbeatable. Saffron's central airways funneled cargo zeppelins from Sinnoh's icy harbours, while its rail lines snaked through Johto's mountains, delivering raw Ethereum crystals mined from Hoenn's depths. Silph Company controlled the choke points, the Goldenrod Tunnel for underground shipments, the Olivine Port relays for overseas trade. Every Pokémon Center, from the simplest outpost in Pallet Town to the gleaming towers in Lumiose City centuries later, ran on Kanto tech. Their servers hummed with Silph firmware, storing billions of digital souls in a cloud born here in 1996. Trainers felt it first. Red, that quiet prodigy from Pallet, didn't just battle his way to Indigo Plateau. He rode the wave of this revolution. His Pokédex, a Silph marvel, scanned evolutions in real time, feeding data back to Oak's lab. That lab perched on Route 1 became the nerve center, piping stats to researchers worldwide. Hoenn's Professor Birch consulted Kanto databases for Kyogre migration patterns. Sinnoh's Cynthia cross-referenced Dialga lore against Silph's temporal anomaly logs. Kanto's factories churned out heal balls for Alola's future shores, Ultra Balls tested in Galar prototypes. It was logistical mastery, supply chains so efficient that a single Sylph patent could stabilize economies from Unova's skyscrapers to Paldea's terraces. The air in those boardrooms crackled with ambition. Sylph executives, suits crisp against the factory haze, unveiled the Master Ball at trade expos, a capture device flawless enough to ensnare even Mew. Revenues soared into the billions, funding R&D labs buried beneath Saffron's headquarters. Engineers tinkered with megastones imported from Kalos precursors, stabilizing their energy for practical use. Pokémon battles evolved too. Sylph arenas introduced holographic fields, projecting battles to stadiums across the nation. 1996 wasn't a year, it was a detonation, propelling Kanto from frontier outpost to the Silicon Valley of the Pokémon world. Yet beneath the gleaming facades, shadows lengthened. Progress always extracts a price, and Sylph's pursuit of the ultimate Pokémon unearthed horrors. Deep in Cinnabar Island's volcano-forged labs, under the watchful eye of a rogue scientist named Fuji, they chased the phantom of creation. Mew, that elusive genetic ancestor, glimpsed in South American ruins. Rumours tied it to Hisui's ancient surveys provided the blueprint. Sylph's cloning vats bubbled with stolen DNA, amplified by fossil revives from Mount Moon. The result? Mewtwo, not a Pokémon, but a god in chains. You sense the unease in the sterile corridors, the flicker of monitors charting neural spikes. Mewtwo wasn't born, it was engineered, its psychic essence twisted to shatter psychic barriers. Ethical lines blurred as board members debated. Was replication dominion or desecration? Fuji, haunted by visions of his lost daughter, justified it as resurrection science. But Mewtwo's awakening cracked the illusion. Psychic storms ravaged the labs, exposing Sylph's underbelly. Team Rocket's infiltration, a symptom of corporate hubris inviting criminal shadows. Rockets didn't invent cloning, they exploited Sylph's breakthroughs, smuggling prototypes to their Sylph Tower heists. The fallout rippled globally. Kanto's regulators, pressured by Oak's indictments, imposed the first Pokémon rights accords, echoing Hisui's frontier pacts. Cloning bans spread to Johto's labs, Sinnoh's ethical councils. Mewtwo's escape into the unknown. For a time, Cerulean Cave became its mythic lair, forced the world to question, had Kanto's revolution elevated humanity or merely armed it against its own creations? Sylph survived, humble, hard, pivoting to sustainable tech, but the scar remained. 1996 defined an era, yes, but at the cost of innocence, lost in vats of glowing fluid. As Kanto's smokestacks cooled and its networks pulsed onward, whispers from across the border grew louder, traditions long dormant in Johto, clashing against this tide of steel and code. In Chapter 5, Johto's Sacred Traditions, we'll uncover how those ancient rites, from burned tower flames to the Tin Tower's harmonious calls, began to reclaim their power, threatening to unravel the very industrial web Kanto had spun. Stay with me as the balance shifts. While Kanto hurtles forward on the wings of Sylph Company's relentless innovations, powering the global Pokémon network from its gleaming towers in Saffron City, its neighbour Johto whispers a quieter truth. Right across the border, in the shadowed heart of Ekrutek City, two ancient spires rise like forgotten promises, guarding secrets that predate even the wild frontiers of Hisui. You can almost feel the chill of mist rolling in from the nearby Bellchime Trail as you approach the burned tower first. This blackened ruin, charred by a catastrophic fire centuries ago, stands as Johto's stark reminder of human hubris. Legend tells of a blaze that consumed everything within, awakening the legendary beasts, Raiku's thunderous roar echoing through the smoke, Entei's flames dancing in defiance, and Suisun's pure waters rushing to quench the inferno. But it was Ho-Oh, the radiant phoenix of the skies, who descended amid the ashes. Judging humanity unworthy in that moment of destruction, it vanished, leaving only the tower's skeletal frame as a monument to what was lost. Walk its crumbling floors today, and the air still carries a faint, acrid tang of old char, the wind whistling through gaps like the ghosts of those flames, urging you to reflect on cycles of ruin and rebirth. Yet destruction birthed preservation. Across the city, the Tin Tower, soaring elegant and untouched, its golden bells tolling softly at dawn, serves as Ho-Oh's eternal perch. Climb its spiraling stairs, each step worn smooth by generations of pilgrims, and you'll emerge onto a platform where rainbows are said to bridge the heavens. Here, in this bastion of Johto's sacred traditions, ancient scrolls and murals depict the world's earliest harmonies between humans and Pokémon, etched before Kanto's factories ever hummed. The tower isn't just stone, it's a living archive where monks in flowing robes chant verses from the old verses, preserving tales of creation that link back to the Synjo ruins we explored between these lands and distant Sinnoh. Every peal of its bells reverberates across the continent, a call to remember what technology alone cannot touch. And Ho-Oh doesn't stand alone in this vigilant watch. Beneath the waves in the swirling depths of the Whirl Islands, Lugia slumbers as the guardian of the seas, this immense silver dragon, master of whirlpools and tempests, balances Ho-Oh's fiery ascension with oceanic depths. Together, they embody the dual soul of the Kanto-Johto landmass, a phoenix of renewal arcing over verdant valleys and urban sprawls, a leviathan cradling the coasts from Vermilion's ports to Kianwood's cliffs. Feel the salt spray on your face as you sail those treacherous waters, the island's caverns humming with Lugia's psychic presence, as a force that has quelled storms threatening ships bound for Olivine or even far-off Hoenn. These legends aren't distant myths. They're the spiritual anchors holding the shared continental heart steady amid change. This is Johto's profound gift, a deliberate embrace of the eternal, countering Kanto's blaze of progress, where Saffron's skyscrapers pulse with Pokeball assembly lines and satellite signals beaming to every corner of the world. Ecrutiques, dance theatres, stage age-old rituals under lantern light. Kimono-clad performers channeling the spirits of the kimono girls and their evolutions. Goldenrod City's department stores buzz with modern commerce, yet its radio tower, echoing the Tin Tower's legacy, broadcasts folk tales alongside weather reports. Azalea Town's hidden wells shelter, Slowpoke with healing tales, as a nod to shamanic roots that Sylph Company could never replicate. Johto doesn't reject Kanto's advancements, it tempers them. Festivals like the bug catching contest in National Park or the lanterns floating over Lake of Rage weave Pokémon into the fabric of daily life, ensuring that as Kanto builds the future, Johto safeguards the past. You'll sense it in the incense-heavy air of the bell tower's base, where offerings of rice and berries draw Ho-Oh back, or in the solemn pilgrimages to the ruins of Alph, those puzzle-locked chambers whispering of alphabets older than any Hisuian survey. Picture the landmass as a vast tapestry, Kanto's electric veins feeding power grids that light Johto's shrines at night. Professor Oak himself hinted at this unity, placing these realms within one unnamed nation, at their borders as fluid as the rivers linking Ilex Forest to Viridian. The sacred traditions ensure that Ho-Oh's rainbow doesn't fade under industrial smog, that Lugia's dives keep the seas clear for trade routes, sustaining Sylph's empire. Without Johto's reverence, Kanto's innovations might unravel, unmoored from the law that birthed them. The same law tying back to Arceus's plates in Synjo, to Hisui's star-fallen origins. As you linger in these towers, the horizon beckons beyond Johto's misty shores, where the continental weave begins to fray into something profoundly separate. What happens when the Guardian's gaze turns seaward, and an entire region emerges in isolation, its primal forces unbound by these shared traditions? That's the mystery we'll unravel in Chapter 6, the Hoenn isolation. While Ho-Oh and Lugia stand eternal vigil over the sacred towers of Johto, their gaze rarely strays southward to the fractured shores of Hoenn, a region severed from the mainland by an ocean that whispers of cataclysmic fury. You can almost feel the weight of those waters now, vast and unyielding, turning what was once a contiguous landmass into an island fortress adrift in the southern seas. Professor Rowan once confided to young explorers that Hoenn shares the same unnamed sovereign nation as Kanto and Synjo, a revelation that binds these lands in political unity even as geography conspires to divide them. Yet maps of the Pokémon world reveal no bridges, no ferries plying regular routes between Hoenn's volcanic peaks and Johto's misty highlands. This isolation isn't mere coincidence or lazy world building, and it's the scar of a war that drowned continents and redrew the very edges of the world. Picture the primal epoch, long before the Hisuian settlers tamed their frontier or Kanto's labs hummed with invention. In Hoenn's cradle, two titans clashed. Groudon, the continent maker, its crimson hide pulsing with subterranean fire, and Kyogre, the sea basin progenitor, its azure form summoning tempests from the deep. These weren't the subdued legendaries we challenge in caves today. In their primal states, awakened by ancient orbs pulsing with meteor-forged energy, they embodied raw elemental supremacy. Groudon stomped the earth, birthing mountain ranges from molten rifts, expanding land masses with every thunderous step that cracked the planet's crust. Kyogre countered by swelling the oceans, as its song a deafening roar that evaporated skies into endless rain, flooding valleys and submerging fledgling civilizations. Their battle wasn't confined to Hoenn's borders. Shockwaves rippled globally, tsunamis battering Sinnoh's icy coasts, earthquakes toppling Johto's proto-towers, even sending tremors as far as the ancient deserts that would one day cradle Unova's ruins. Sea levels surged by hundreds of feet in the aftermath, swallowing coastal plains that once linked Hoenn to the northern mainland. What had been a sprawling supercontinent, teeming with migratory Pokémon herds and shared human settlements, fractured into archipelagos. Hoenn's Kyushu-inspired silhouette, rugged, ringed by coral reefs and lava flows, became a self-contained world, its people evolving in isolation, their culture steeped in the duality of land and sea. Fossils from this era, unearthed in Hoenn's deserts and underwater ruins, bear the twisted shells of creatures caught mid-evolution, preserved in the chaos of rising tides. This primal war's echoes linger in every Hoenn legend, from the rival fanatics of Team Magma and Aqua, who unknowingly reenact their god's feud, to the perpetual humidity that clings to your skin in Lily Cove City, a humid reminder of skies forever altered. Global climates shifted too. Sinnoh's perpetual snows thickened from evaporated moisture locked in polar ice, while Kanto's temperate zones narrowed, pushing human innovation towards Sylph Company's climate-controlled domes. But amidst this devastation, a watchful people emerged to safeguard against recurrence. The Draconids, ethereal guardians dwelling in the shadowed caverns of Meteor Falls. Cloaked in scales mimicking Rayquaza's serpentine form, they traced their lineage to the war's survivors, who witnessed the Sky Dragon's descent to quell the chaos. Rayquaza, hovering high above the ozone layer, intervened not with brute force but precision, devouring the destructive energies until balance restored. The Draconids became meteorite seers, charting celestial paths from their waterfall-veiled altars. They inscribed prophecies on stone tablets, foretelling the Delta Emerald catastrophe, a foreseen calamity where corrupted orbs would summon supercharged primal forms, unleashing floods dwarfing the original war. For generations, they hoarded fragments of the meteor that birthed the orbs, their dances mimicking Rayquaza's coils to attune with its draconic will. You sense their vigilance in the hush of Meteor Falls, and where bioluminescent fungi illuminate petroglyphs depicting swirling seas engorging the land, Groudon and Kyogre locked in eternal glare. When Zinnia, the last Dragon Master, emerges in modern tales, her warnings carry the weight of these ancestors. She speaks of the Delta episode, where a meteor's descent threatens to ignite the orbs anew, potentially raising sea levels once more and erasing Hoenn entirely, perhaps even bridging it back to the mainland in a new flooded unity. These draconids remind us that Hoenn's isolation is both curse and crucible, forging a resilient spirit attuned to the planet's primal pulse. Their predictions saved the region from the Delta Emerald's fusion power, a gem that could have merged the Titan's forces into an unstoppable deluge. Rayquaza's roar still echoes in Hoenn's skies during storms, a promise that the Dragon Watch is ready to dive from the heavens. As Hoenn's waters recede into uneasy calm, the Pokémon world's map begins to unfurl further, hinting at horizons beyond this southern bastion. What happens when explorers turn their eyes westward, leaving the familiar shores of our unified nation for a land untouched by these ancient floods? That's the mystery we'll unravel in Chapter 7, Unova, the Great Departure, where a bold new continent challenges everything we know about separation and rebirth. As the echoes of Groudon and Kyogre's primal clash faded, leaving Hoenn adrift on elevated seas that forever altered coastlines across the world, Pokémon trainers began to gaze beyond the misty horizons of that isolated archipelago. Whispers of distant lands grew louder, carried on trade winds from merchants who'd braved uncharted waters. For the first time, the world they'd known, those intertwined regions of Kanto, Johto, Hoenn, and Sinnoh, all rooted in the rugged beauty of Japan's ancient landscapes, felt too small to contain the growing spirit of exploration. Unova emerged not as an extension of that familiar mainland, but as a bold rupture, a new continent forged from the dreams of pioneers who crossed oceans to build something utterly foreign. Picture the towering spires of Castelia City, piercing a sky hazy with urban fog, its streets alive with the clamour of taxis honking and pedestrians in sharp suits rushing past glass facades that reflect 1,000 ambitions. This wasn't the serene shrines of Johto or the volcanic wilds of Hoenn. Unova pulsed with the raw energy of a metropolis, inspired by New York's electric heartbeat. Its geography, stretching from the gleaming skyscrapers of the east to the vast, windswept plains of the west, evoking the sprawling promise of America's eastern seaboard. Game Freak made this shift deliberate, a seismic pivot after 4 generations tethered to Japanese soil. Kanto mirrored the bustling Kanto plain, Johto the historic Kansai heartland, Hoenn the fiery Kyushu island chain, Sinnoh the untamed Hokkaido frontier. But Unova, it shattered that mold entirely. No shared mountains or bordering seas linked it back. Instead, it stood alone, a fresh canvas demanding new stories. Developers poured their vision into routes that twisted through deserts reminiscent of the American Southwest, bridges arching over rivers like the Hudson, and even a massive television studio broadcasting dreams to the masses. This wasn't subtle evolution, it was departure, a declaration that the Pokémon world now spanned globes, inviting species and cultures from every corner to mingle in its diverse embrace. At Unova's core lies a legend that captures this break like no other. The tale of the twin heroes, brothers whose unbreakable bond once held the power to unite a fractured land. They weren't kings or gods, but visionaries, each wielding a truth that burned brighter than the sun. One championed ideals, dreaming of a world reshaped by pure aspiration. The other pursued truth, grounded in the unyielding reality of what is. Together, they tamed the original dragon, a singular beast of immense power said to embody the essence of creation itself, raw, harmonious, draconic force flowing like a river of starlight, but harmony fractured under the weight of their diverging paths. In their final confrontation, atop a peak that would become the Dragon's Spiral Tower, their ideals clashed like thunderheads, colliding. The original dragon, unable to reconcile the brothers' rift, sundered itself in anguish. From its body sprang 2 new legends, Reshiram, the vast white Pokémon, embodiment of truth with flames that purify deception, and Zekrom, the vast black Pokémon, harbinger of ideals cloaked in electric fury. A third fragment lingered, crystallized as Kyurem, the hollow shell yearning for wholeness, frozen in the distant giant's chasm. This myth isn't just backstory, it's Unova's soul, etched into murals within the tower's spiraling chambers, where icy winds howl through ancient stones, a whispering of division and the cost of unbridled ambition. Feel the chill of that tower as you climb its heights, each level revealing faded carvings of the hero's rise, villages thriving under their guidance, Pokémon labouring alongside humans in perfect sync until pride tore it all asunder. The desert resort nearby buries relics from that era, castles swallowed by sand, where rulers once governed in companionship with their partners, only for truth and ideals, to ignite war that toppled empires. Unova doesn't hide these scars. It wears them as lessons, a reminder that progress demands facing the dragons we create within ourselves. This new region became a true melting pot, drawing Pokémon from every known corner of the globe. Unlike Kanto's native 151 or Johto's gentle evolutions, Unova's Pokédex brimmed with 649 entries, pulling in species from distant lands, Emolga gliding on tropical breezes like those from far-off archipelagos, Clinkclang clanging in factories echoing Sylph Company's innovations but amplified for an industrial age, and even Darmanitan roaring across plateaus that felt worlds away from Sinnoh's snows. Trainers here hailed from everywhere, Castalia's elite in tailored coats, Nimbasa's performers under stadium lights, and immigrants docking at Verbank's ports with accents thick as fog, sharing tales of Kanto's gyms or Hoenn's dives. Cities like Driftveil bridged old and cold worlds, its cold storage warehouses humming with preserved goods shipped from Sinnoh's icy ports, while the Pokémon musical in Nimbasa fused Johto's traditional dances with flashy Western spectacle. Unova didn't just import Pokémon, it remixed them into a cultural symphony. Lilligant bloomed in upscale gardens, evoking Kalosian elegance before Kalos even appeared on maps. Conkeldurr hauled beams in construction booms, its strength born from global labour migrations. Even the villains reflected this fusion. Team Plasma preached liberation with a zealot's fire, cloaked in royal garb that nodded to ancient Unovan thrones, but their ideals twisted the hero's legend into a call for upheaval. Wander the tubular P2 laboratory, hidden beneath the earth, where scientists dissected DNA like alchemists chasing the original dragon's lost unity, or stand in the relic castle's depths, flashlight cutting through dust motes to reveal thrones cracked by time, guardians like Kofagrigus shuffling in shadows, yet their sarcophagi etched with warnings of hubris. Unova invited you to question, what happens when truths diverge? When a continent built by outsiders becomes home to legends reborn from breakage, this great departure set the stage for even greater conflicts, where beauty masked devastation and weapons of unimaginable scale threatened existence itself. As we head into Chapter 8, the Kalosian War and the Ultimate Weapon, you'll uncover how one region's elegance concealed a holocaust that could have erased the world. Stick around, because the shadows of that war reach back further than you think. As Unova's twin heroes forged their ideals from the shattered body of the original dragon, splitting truth from ambition across a vast new continent. Here, the Pokémon world's timeline stretches back even further into shadows, far older than those ancient thrones. 3,000 years before any crown rose in Unova, a cataclysmic war erupted on the soil that would one day bloom into Kalos, carving borders that still echo through the continents today. Picture the fields of what we now call Lumiosi City, not as glittering boulevards lined with cafes and fountains, but as blood-soaked battlegrounds where two mighty kingdoms clashed without mercy. Pokémon were conscripted by the thousands, their roars mingling with the screams of human soldiers under skies choked with smoke from endless sieges. This wasn't a skirmish over territory. It was total war, fueled by greed for land and power. raging for over a century. Armies marched from dawn until dusk, go-goat-drawn chariots thundering across plains now paved into Route 14, while talon flames soared overhead, dropping firebombs on fortified camps. The rivers ran red, and the earth trembled under the weight of legendaries summoned unwillingly into the fray. At the heart of this apocalypse stood a king named Az, a figure whose name whispers through Kalosian ruins like a curse. Tall and resolute, with eyes that had seen too much loss, Az watched his kingdom crumble. His own son fell in battle, a boy no older than 10, cut down by enemy blades amid the chaos. Grief twisted him into something eternal, something unbreakable. In his despair, Az turned to forbidden science, harnessing the life force of countless Pokémon to forge the ultimate weapon. A colossal machine tower, gleaming with otherworldly energy, it buried deep beneath what would become Geosenge Town. You can almost feel the hum of it now, that machine awakening under stormy skies, its core pulsing with stolen vitality. Az had discovered a flower of infinite life, a delicate bloom that promised immortality, but war demanded more. He bound it to his invention, sacrificing his beloved Floette, his son's loyal companion, in a ritual that ripped the essence from thousands of Pokémon souls. The weapon fired once, a beam of pure annihilation that swept across the battlefield like a god's wrath. In an instant, entire armies vanished, petrified into stone, their forms scattered across the land as eerie monuments. The explosion reshaped the very continent, blasting out the massive craters that cradle Lumiose City today, forcing rivers to reroute and mountains to crumble. Borders shifted overnight. One kingdom's heartland became another's frontier, redrawing maps that historians would puzzle over for millennia. But victory came at a price Az could never pay. The machine granted him eternal life, his body unchanging, as centuries blurred into 3,000 years of wandering torment. Immortal, yes, but cursed, doomed to watch generations rise and fall while he clutched the empty key to his weapon, a golden Floette pin that mocked his loss. He roamed Kalos unseen, a ghost king funding battles from the shadows, his grief fueling proxy wars that rippled across regions. Sylph Company in Kanto whispers rumours of his influence in their tech. Even Unova's ideals might trace shadows to his endless rage. The ultimate weapon lay dormant beneath Geosenge, its power sealed but seeping, and a toxic legacy that poisoned the soil and air. From that fallout emerged something miraculous and monstrous: Mega Evolution. The weapon's radiant energy, a cocktail of infinite life force and raw destruction, irradiated Smarnies scattered across Kalos. These weren't ordinary rocks. They absorbed the essence of Pokémon bonds, forged in the war's desperation. Az himself pioneered the concept during the conflict, keying stones to specific Pokémon to amplify their power against foes. Lucario Knights charged with blazing auras. Charizard Lords scorched enemy lines from megaforms no one had dreamed possible. The radiation lingered, embedding in gems that washed up on Kalos shores or buried in caves like Reflection Cave. Trainers today clutch these megastones, feeling the ancient pulse when they trigger evolutions. Venusaur blooming colossal petals, Blaziken igniting infernal wings, not knowing they channel fallout from a war that killed gods among beasts. Walk the streets of Lumiose and you tread on hallowed ground, where fairy lights hide scars from that beam. The fairy type, introduced alongside Mega Evolution, feels like nature's rebuke to the weapon's horror. Pure whimsical power, born from life force twisted but not destroyed. Xerneas and Yveltal. Kalos's life deer and destruction bird embody the balance Az shattered. One grants vitality through horns that glow like the eternal flower. The other drains it into feathered voids. Their eternal dance, a reminder of the war's cycle. Az's machine nearly tipped it forever, but the world's Pokémon essence endured. Mutating into evolutions that let bonds surpass even his machine's might. Legends say AZ still walks among us, his footsteps echoing in Illumina Town's glow or the depths of Terminus Cave, seeking reunion with his lost Floette. The ultimate weapon stirs in dreams of Lysandra, that modern visionary who unearthed its secrets, dreaming of resetting the world in Aziz's image. But the true reshaping? It pushed humanity to seek new horizons, fleeing the scarred lands of Kalos for distant shores where migrations would weave even tighter threads into the global tapestry. And those migratory patterns from Kalos's survivors, carrying megastone lore and war-torn Pokémon across oceans to sun-kissed islands, that's the mystery we'll unravel next in Alola's migratory patterns, where ancient grudges bloom into tropical paradises you won't believe. As the dust settled from AZ's ultimate weapon, shattering Kalos's ancient kingdoms and redrawing the world's fragile borders, survivors scattered like seeds on the wind, carrying fragments of their past to uncharted horizons. Some of those horizons stretched far beyond the familiar mainland, across vast oceans to a chain of islands where tropical breezes whispered secrets of forgotten journeys. Mali City stands as a living testament to that exodus, its sturdy wooden facades and sloping tiled roofs echoing the timeless elegance of Johto's heartland. Picture the streets of Mali at dusk, lanterns flickering to life along pathways lined with paper screens and overhanging eaves, so reminiscent of Ekrutik's shadowed shrines or Goldenrod's bustling markets. These weren't coincidences born of whimsy. Settlers from Johto and Kanto, fleeing the upheavals of their homelands centuries earlier, poured their craftsmanship into Alola's volcanic soil. They hauled timber from distant forests, mimicking the sturdy post and beam structures that withstood Johto's monsoon rains and earthquake tremors. The Grand Mali Library, with its multi-tiered pagoda design, could almost be a sibling to the bell tower, housing scrolls that detail not just Pokémon lore, but the very voyages that bridged continents. These migrants didn't arrive empty-handed. They brought stories of Ho-Oh's rainbow plumage soaring over Whirl Islands and the solemn toll of the burned tower's bells. In Alola, those tales evolved, blending with island chants to honor Tapu guardians who danced on moonlit waves. The architecture served more than shelter. It anchored their identity amid swaying palms and relentless trade winds. Walk the library's creaking floors today, and you'll hear echoes of Johto's sages reciting verses from the old verses, adapted to praise the island's kahunas rather than the mainland's warlords. This fusion reveals a deeper truth. Alola wasn't a blank canvas, but a crossroads forged by human feet, pounding ancient migration routes. Those same routes shaped the Pokémon themselves, turning ordinary travelers into something extraordinary. Consider the Alolan variants, those striking reinterpretations of familiar species that roam Kanto and Johto's wilds. Take the Rattata, plump and dark-furred in Alola. Its poison-tipped incisors a far cry from the purple rodent scampering through Kanto's alleys. Or the Raticate, now a hulking, electrode-tailed beast that could power a village during blackouts. These aren't mere cosmetic shifts. They embody centuries of biological adaptation, proof that Pokémon, like their human companions, migrated en masse and reshaped themselves to survive. Imagine flocks of Yungoos crossing oceans on makeshift rafts, their sleek Alolan forms evolving under relentless sun and scarce food, growing stockier to hoard fat against lean seasons. Vulpix, once a fiery fox of Kanto's mountains, birthed icy variants in Alola's highlands, their crystalline fur a masterful response to perpetual frost amid volcanic heat. Sandshrew burrowed into beaches, trading rocky hides for rubbery, water-repellent skin to glide through surf. This wasn't overnight magic. Genetic drift over generations, spurred by isolation and environmental pressures, has sculpted these forms. Fossil records etched into Akala Island's cliffs suggest the first waves arrived during Hisui's era, around the mid-1800s. Hitching rides on trade ships from Sinnoh's ports, intermingling with local stock until new lineages emerged. Grime and muck, oozing through Alolan's sewers, absorbed the island's toxic pollutants, turning electric blue and sparking with volatile energy. Even Geodude floated on psychic levitation, its Alolan shell magnetized by mineral-rich lava flows. These adaptations whisper of a grand theory. Pokémon aren't static icons, but dynamic survivors. Their DNA a ledger of migratory hardship. Johto's Executor towers as a palm-fruited giant here, heads swaying like coconuts in a gale, because seeds from mainland groves took root in tropical loam, twisting evolution's path. Raichu, bloated and psychic charged from moonstones scattered across Melemele beaches, skips the thunderbolt fury for telekinetic blasts, a serene sentinel born of island tranquility. But what fueled these epic treks? What invisible threads pulled species and people alike across impossible distances? Ultra wormholes hold the key, those shimmering rifts that tear open the fabric between dimensions, spilling otherworldly energies into our Pokémon world. In Alola, they're no myth. Kahunas speak of them as the tears in the veil, portals that first yawned wide during ancient cataclysms, perhaps even echoing the ultimate weapon's shockwaves from Kalos. These wormholes aren't random. They pulse along migratory ley lines, drawing Pokémon from ultra-space, parallel realms teeming with beasts like Nihilego and Kartana. Buzzwole flexes into our skies from ultra-jungles, its muscular form a stark contrast to any mainland Machamp. Pheromosa darts like living glass, adapted to dimensions where speed defies gravity. When these invaders cross over, they don't just invade, they interbreed, catalyze mutations, accelerate adaptations. Alola's guardians, the Tapu, seal most breaches, but stragglers linger, their genes weaving into local populations, explaining anomalies like the electric Mimikyu, haunting abandoned shrines, or the spectral presence in Salazzle's hypnotic dances. Wormholes explain the variant's sudden proliferation too. A wormhole flare over Pony Island might bathe a flock of Persian in otherworldly radiation, birthing the snarling, stone-crowned Alolan strain overnight. They connect not just worlds, but timelines, allowing echoes of Hisui's warped beasts to influence modern shores. Professor Burnett's research logs detail how these portals spike during solstices, coinciding with migration peaks, funneling beasts that carry pollen, spores, even viruses priming evolution. Alola becomes a nexus, its migratory patterns a symphony of dimensional bleed, human sails, and Pokémon instincts. Feel the humid air thicken as a wormhole hums open at twilight. Violet lights spilling across black sand beaches, silhouettes of Xurkitree slithering through like living lightning rods. This is Alola's pulse, a reminder that no region stands alone. The mainland's ancient feuds seeded these islands. Variants chronicle the cost of adaptation, and wormholes promise endless tomorrows laced with the unknown. You've journeyed with me through these patterns, from Johto's roofs crowning Mali to the wormhole's ethereal glow. Rest easy now, knowing the threads tighten further ahead. Up next in Chapter 10, Galar's industrial might will uncover how smokestacks and stadiums forged an empire from the ashes of old worlds, powering rivalries that echo across the globe. Sleep deep and dream of the connections yet to come. Before we dive deeper into this incredible journey, I'm curious, where in the world are you watching this from? Drop a comment below and let our global community know. And if you're finding this as mind-blowing as I am, hit that like button to help more people discover this story. Those migratory paths from Johto didn't just fade into Alola's tropical haze, they stretched further across storm-tossed waves to a rugged island chain where steel smokestacks pierced perpetual grey skies, and the ground itself pulsed with an unnatural power. Galar, born from the bones of Britain's industrial heartland, flipped its map like a deliberate act of defiance, placing its frozen wilds in the south to cloak the crown tundra's forbidden truths from prying eyes. Picture the northern factories of Manchester and Sheffield, reborn as Windon and Hammerlock, belching steam into the drizzle, where gears grind endlessly and Pokémon battles fuel a league spectacle grander than any coronation. But beneath that roaring machinery lies the spark of Galar's true might, Dynamax energy, a volatile force unearthed not from quiet labs, but from a cataclysm that nearly swallowed the region whole. It started in the shadowed pits of the northern mines, those British-inspired crags echoing with the clank of pickaxes and the low rumble of something ancient awakening. Miners chasing coal veins, remnants of Galar's feverish industrial boom, struck not black rock, but a crimson crystal lattice, throbbing like a heartbeat trapped in stone. That was no ordinary ore. It was the first whisper of Eternatus, the colossal dragon from beyond the stars, whose crash landing birthed the darkest day. The darkest day wasn't some poetic eclipse, it was apocalypse, etched in ash and energy. Skies cracked open over the northern highlands, raining down meteoric shards that warped the land. Pokémon swelled to titanic sizes, rampaging through soot-choked towns, their bodies crackling with pinkish auras that shattered bridges and toppled factory towers. Rivers boiled, turning the misty moors into glowing infernos, and while the air thickened with a metallic tang that choked the lungs of every worker and wildling alike, this was Dynamax energy in its raw fury, unstable, infinite, drawn from Eternatus's core like blood from a wound. The region's engineers, those hardy folk with grease-stained hands and unyielding resolve, saw opportunity in the chaos. They harnessed it, bottling the power into stadium generators, fueling the Pokeballs that let trainers summon giants under spotlights. But every boom has its buried cost. Those early experiments left scars, craters where entire villages vanished, swallowed by rifts that still hum faintly on stormy nights. Why bury this origin tale in the industrial north, you might wonder? When Galar's map screams inversion, look closer at the land itself, a masterful sleight of geography. Traditional Britain unfurls north to south, from Scottish Highlands to English plains. Galar, it wears that layout backward. The snowy crown tundra squats in the south, a glacial fortress of ice spires and hidden ruins, while verdant fields and urban sprawls dominate the north. This wasn't accident or artistic whim, it was engineered secrecy. The ancient stewards of Galar, fearing the darkest day's recurrence, remapped their realm in lore and stone. Cartographers inscribed the wild tundra southward, a frozen barrier patrolled by eternal blizzards and spectral guardians, veiling the true source of Dynamax, massive energy cores slumbering beneath the ice, linked directly to Eternatus's prison. Approach from the sea, and you'd hit factories first, a smoke screen of progress masking the perilous south. A venture too far into those inverted wilds, and the ground whispers warnings, avalanches that bury intruders, auroras that blind compasses, all to protect the tundra's vaults where the darkest day's remnants pulse unchecked. At the heart of this inverted shield stand the true architects, Hisuian and Zamazenta, the sword and shield wolves who forged Galar's monarchy from blood and legend. Millennia before steam engines, two kings ruled the primal north. Brothers, say the tapestries in Hammerlock's keep, one wielding a rusted blade forged from a fallen star, the other a massive shield etched with runes of defiance. They weren't tyrants, they were unifiers, binding fractious clans under banners of wolf pelts during endless tribal wars. Then came the first darkest day precursor, a lesser incursion of cosmic poison that twisted beasts into monsters. The brothers summoned the wolves, Zacian, sleek and scarlet, her blade keen enough to cleave mountains. Zamazenta, hulking indigo, her shield a bulwark against oblivion. Together they pierced the sky rift, driving back the energy storm, but at grievous cost. The kings vanished into legend, their thrones empty, leaving only the wolves to roam as eternal sentinels. Those legends endure in Galar's every riveted beam and roaring crowd. The industrial might? It's no coincidence Dynamax battles mimic that ancient clash, trainers channeling wolf-like ferries to command giants in colosseums built on mineshafts. Zacian and Zamazenta slumber in southern vaults, their forms intertwined with the crown tundra's secrets, awakening only when Eternatus stirs anew. Rose, as the chairman with his vision of endless power plants, nearly unleashed it all again, blind to how the inverted map, south cold, north aflame, wasn't just geography, but a vow, a promise carved by kings and wolves to contain the stars' wrath, lest the darkest day engulf the world once more. And as Galar's engines thrum with borrowed starfire, our timeline pulls us toward the sun-baked scars of a crater that rewrote paradise itself. In Chapter 11, Paldea's Great Crater, where ancient falls and forbidden crystals hint at a cataclysm that could link every region in unbreakable chains. As Galar's inverted shores concealed the crown tundra's frozen enigmas from the world, the Pokémon globe spun onward to Paldea, a sun-drenched Iberian expanse where a gaping wound in the earth dominated every horizon. This great crater, vast and unyielding, has scarred the region's central highlands like a cosmic scar, its jagged rim rising thousands of feet above the misty depths below. You can almost feel the heat shimmering off those rust-red cliffs, the air thick with the scent of wild herbs and ozone, as if the planet itself exhaled secrets long buried. At the crater's forbidden core lies Area Zero, a chasm so profound it swallows light and spits back echoes from eras uncharted. Researchers from Paldea's academies first descended here decades ago, drawn by whispers of otherworldly energies pulsing from the depths. What they found defied the steady march of time you know from Kanto's bustling labs or Sinnoh's mythic peaks. Time itself unraveled in Area Zero, folding like paper in a gale. Clocks spun backward without warning, shadows stretched into impossible shapes, and the air hummed with a low, bone-deep vibration that set teeth on edge. Imagine standing on that precarious ledge, peering into the abyss, where research stations cling to sheer walls like metallic barnacles. Elevators groan downward for miles, past bioluminescent fungi glowing in electric blues and greens until you breach the lowest levels. There, temporal anomalies twist reality into knots. Pokémon vanish mid-battle, reappearing altered, their forms echoing beasts from scrolls of antiquity or machines from nightmares yet to come. The ground quakes not from magma, but from rifts, where past and future bleed together, leaving behind crystalline residues that sparkle with captured moments. These intrusions birthed the paradox Pokémon, those spectral invaders that prowled Area Zero's shadowed floors. Take the ancient variants, a hulking behemoths, like roaring great tusk, armoured in primal fury, their hides scarred by eons of forgotten savannas, or sandy shocks, a serpentine terror evoking dusty deserts, where woolly mammoths thundered under alien skies. Then the future forms strike with cold precision, slender iron treads rumbling on treads of gleaming alloy, iron hands pulsing with cybernetic veins that glow like circuit fire. Iron Valiant, a knight of porcelain and plasma, slices through foes with blades honed in forge worlds beyond our sun. But are these truly travellers from lost epochs, yanked through time's fragile weave? Or do they manifest as dreams given flesh, illusions woven from the collective subconscious of a world scarred by legendary's wars? Some scholars in Paldea's candlelit libraries argue the crater taps a dream realm, akin to the distortion world bleeding into Sinnoh's fabric. Others point to the black hole at Area Zero's heart, a singularity theorized to warp space-time, pulling echoes from Paldea's prehistoric wilds or its mechanized tomorrow. You feel the pull yourself in eyewitness accounts, trainers gripped by vertigo, glimpsing brontosaurus herds grazing amid laser vines or drone swarms dissecting glowing orbs under crimson moons. The anomalies thicken the plot. When you consider their origins tied to Professor Sutter and Professor Turo, visionaries obsessed with bridging eras. Sada chased the raw vitality of the past, her machines humming with primal roars encoded in fossil DNA. Turo sought future's sterile perfection, his constructs whirring with predictive algorithms that foresaw evolution's unborn. Their research station, now a haunted relic, had cradles an AI Miraidon or Coridon, draconic paradoxes that phase through walls, eyes flickering with temporal static. Yet tragedy struck when ambition cracked the veil too wide, unleashing swarms that clawed toward the surface, forcing closures and quarantines that echo Kalos's walled-off ruins. Deeper still, the great crater guards Paldea's most profound riddle, the terrestrial phenomenon, that radiant alchemy transforming Pokémon in battle's heat. Terra crystals jut from cavern walls like frozen lightning, multifaceted gems pulsing with every color of the spectrum. A Pokémon terrestrializes, and its body erupts in crystalline armor, types shifting like quicksilver, power surging from an inner star. You sense it in the air during a raid, a crackle like shattering glass, fur hardening to diamond edges, flames turning electric sapphire. This isn't mere mutation though. Geologists tracing seismic veins from the crater's floor whisper of a direct conduit to the planet's molten core. Paldea's bedrock funnels terrestrial energy upward, supercharging minerals into Tera shards over millennia. The great crater acts as a pressure valve, where core plasma meets surface winds, birthing phenomena that ripple across the region. Caves glitter with fallen crystals, rivers run iridescent, and wild Pokémon shimmer faintly, as if the Earth's heartbeat lends them temporary godhood. Link this to Hoenn's primal reversions, where Groudon and Kyogre redrew oceans. Could Paldea's core tap the same primordial force, diluted through crustal filters? Evidence mounts when you map the anomalies. Temporal rifts cluster around Tera deposits, suggesting the crystals stabilize or amplify time's fractures. Paradox Pokémon hoard them instinctively, their roars harmonizing with the core's distant thunder. Expeditions report zero-point energy fields, where gravity falters and wounds heal in seconds, mirroring Alola's Z-power bursts, but grounded in geological fury. The crater's rim, etched with ancient runes resembling Unova's hero tales, hints at forgotten civilizations who worshipped this site as the world's navel, offering crystals to appease slumbering titans below. Venturing further, you uncover how Paldea's isolation fosters these secrets. Unlike Galar's foggy moors or Kalos's manicured fields, this land sprawls untamed, olive groves giving way to arid mesas pocked with cavern mouths. The crater dominates maps, a no-fly zone ringed by elite rangers, and its depths patrolled by robotic sentinels that scan for paradox incursions. Yet leaks persist, smugglers hauling Tera shards to black markets, trainers vanishing into fog-shrouded expeditions, returning with eyes haunted by futures unlived. The debate rages in hushed academy halls. If Paradox Pokémon herald true time travel, what cataclysm birthed the black hole? A meteor strike eons ago, perhaps? Or fallout from Aziz's ultimate weapon, echoing across oceans? Or are they psychic projections, dreams of a planet weary from Sinnoh's creation myths and Galar's darkest day? Miraidon coils through timelines, its scales rippling with holographic glitches, while Coridon bounds with the thunder of extinct herds. Touch one, and visions flood. Jungles teeming with megafauna, or sterile hives where flesh yields to steel. And this core energy binds Terrestrial to the temporal weave. Crystals act as anchors, their lattices vibrating at frequencies that resonate with the planet's dynamo. Deep scans reveal filaments threading from Area Zero to Paldea's every corner, explaining why Tera orbs ignite universally. It's as if the Great Crater is the world's forge, hammering evolutions from raw Earth stuff, much like Hisui's space-time rift birthed spectral echoes. As these threads pull tighter, revealing Paldea's pivotal role in the global tapestry, from Japanese heartlands to Iberian wilds, you sense the timeline straining toward revelation. But to secure this vast chronology, with an unyielding anchor point, one that synchronizes every regional cataclysm from Hisui's dawn to Paldea's rifts. Stay with me for Chapter 12, the chronological anchor, where a single, world-shaking truth emerges to bind it all. Those paradox Pokémon lurking in Paldea's great crater don't just bend the rules of biology, they warp time itself, summoning echoes from eras we can barely comprehend, scurrying iron bundles and roaring, slithering serpents that shouldn't exist side by side with our familiar friends. Are they invaders from Hisui's wild frontiers, or harbingers from a future we haven't reached? To unravel that knot, we have to pin down the thread of history running through every region, a single, unbroken line from ancient snow-swept peaks to the sun-baked mesas of today. Let's anchor it all in the frost-bitten dawn of Hisui, that rugged precursor to Sinnoh, where the air still carried the bite of untamed wilderness. Picture the mid-1800s, sails cracking against gales as settlers first carved paths through pine-thick valleys and jagged cliffs. This wasn't some mythic prehistory. Clocks ticked forward in a world on the cusp of industry, where Pokeballs were crude inventions, born of desperation against rampaging beasts. Legends. Arceus drops us right there, into a land where humans and Pokémon eyed each other warily, forging the first uneasy alliances under the watchful gaze of noble alphas like Hisuian Zoroark, cloaked in ghostly shadows, or the thunderous Enamorus ruling the winds. Fast forward through centuries of quiet transformation, Hisui's people tamed the chaos, their surveys mapping out what would become Sinnoh's lakes and peaks. Distorted time in those mountains hinted at deeper rifts, portals flickering like heat haze, whispering of futures yet unborn. By the time Diamond and Pearl light up the screens, Sinnoh stands as a northern bastion, its mythology etched in ancient verses about creation and sin. But Sinnoh doesn't float alone. Professor Oak's words in those games tie it explicitly to Kanto and Hoenn, all breathing the same air in one vast, unnamed nation stretching across archipelagos modelled on Japan's own sprawl, from Kanto's bustling lowlands to Kansai's misty hills, Kyushu's volcanic shores, and Hokkaido's endless winters. That continental weave holds firm. Johto nestles right against Kanto, their borders blurring in shared festivals and shadowed ruins. The Synjo ruins, that enigmatic midpoint between Johto's heart and Sinnoh's edge, pulse with old power, half-buried shrines where verses speak of dragons splitting and worlds colliding. Migration pulses through the veins too. Alola's Mali city rises with roofs curved like Johto's ancient pagodas, built by wanderers from those eastern lands, carrying seeds of culture across oceans. Now the pivot hits in 1996, the year zero that resets everything we know. Red and Blue's journey through Kanto isn't just the origin, it's the fulcrum. Oak's lab hums with the chatter of starters, Team Rocket's schemes slither in the underbelly of Celadon, and a child steps out to claim the title of champion. This marks the modern epoch, when Pokédexes become standard, leagues solidify, and the world tilts toward global connectivity. Why year zero? Because every tale after orbits it. Gold and silver bleed right into Crystal's aftermath. Heart Gold and Soul Silver looping back with kimono girls dancing on those same shores. Fire Red and Leaf Green revisit the gyms with Sevi Islands as an extension, not a detour. Even Hoenn, with its primal stirrings in Ruby and Sapphire, echoes Kanto's league structure, its waters linking to that greater landmass. But timelines don't march in straight lines. They layer, overlap, branch like the roots of Yggdrasil itself. Enter the fracture, Mega Evolution's Shadow Realm versus the pure timeline of the originals. Kalos blooms in Generation 6, its elegant spires and fairy-tinged battles, introducing stones that unleash godlike forms. Charizard's soaring with wings ablaze, Lucario pulsing with aura. Yet rewind to Kanto's 1996, and no such power stirs. Red climbs the peaks, without a single Mega Stone in sight. Alpha Sapphire and Omega Ruby retrofits. Hoenn with them, but Emerald stays pristine, primal but unmegaed. Two universes graze each other. One where Zay's ultimate weapons scarred the Earth 3,000 years back, birthing eternal conflicts and mega awakenings. The other, a cleaner line from Hisui through Unova's ideals to Paldea's anomalies. Unova slots in as the great expander, Generation 5 skyscrapers rising on a distant shore, its twin heroes fracturing the original dragon into Reshiram, Zekrom, Kyurem. No longer bound to Japan's silhouette, it stretches the world, but lore whispers connections, ancient kings ruling with Pokémon in harmony until truth clashed with ideals, toppling thrones in buried deserts. Galar follows, its inverted isles hiding Dynamax fossils from the darkest day. Crowned tundra veiling eternal ice with British fog, Alola's islands drift in tropical haze, a variance evolving from mainland stock over generations of isolation. Paldea crowns it all, 9th region in the sun-drenched southwest, its crater a scar from cosmic impacts eons ago. Scarlet and Violet thrust us into open skies, terrestrial crystals, refracting light like prisms of fate. Here, in 2023's release, the timeline crests modern, academies buzzing, treasures hunted across zero-hour zones. Paradoxes swarm from Area Zero's depths, ancient forms bulky and ironclad, future ones sleek and electric-veined. Not dreams, but bleed-throughs from Hisui's era and beyond, time's fabric thinning, where Tira energy warps reality. This anchor holds because Red's victory isn't arbitrary, it's the spark. Precede it with Hisui's 1800s grit, follow with Kalos's wars, Galar's industry, Paldea's rifts. Mega timelines parallel and not contradict, one branch where stones empower, the other raw and unadorned. Sinnoh's ruins bridge east to west, migrations carry lore across waves. Every gym badge, every legend slots into this chain, from alpha cries in snow to terrestrial blooms under endless blue. Yet for all this linearity, shadows of exchange linger, roots veiled in mist, where goods and secrets flowed unseen between continents. That pulls us straight into Chapter 13, the secret trade routes, where hidden paths reveal how treasures and tales truly cross the seas. With the timeline now firmly anchored from the Hisuian era in the mid-1800s to the bustling modern age of Paldea, and Red and Blue's pivotal journey standing as that crucial year zero around 1996. You can feel the Pokémon world pulsing not just through time, but through networks of trade that bind its regions like veins carrying lifeblood. Picture the sleek silver cars of the magnet train slicing through the twilight between Kanto and Johto, their electromagnetic hum echoing the fusion of technology and Pokémon power that first linked these neighbouring lands. This wasn't mere transportation, it was the artery of economic heartbeat, ferrying rare items, evolutionary stones, and Pokémon from the towering gyms of Saffron City straight to Goldenrod's bustling department stores. Trainers from Vermilion's ports would board with crates of deep sea tooth from the ocean depths, trading them in Ekrutique for the spectral wisps of Johto's ghost Pokémon, creating a ripple of value that strengthened both economies overnight. The train's schedule, precise as a Pidgeot's dive, was synchronized markets across the border. Kanto's tech exports fueling Johto's artisan crafts, while Johto's apricorns and berries replenished Kanto's potion stocks, depleted by endless battles. But this rail wasn't isolated, it fed into a grander web, where the hum of maglev tracks whispered promises of prosperity to sailors docking far away. Across the waves in Kanto's Vermilion City, the SS Anne rocked gently against the harbour, its opulent decks alive with the chatter of international merchants and the salty tang of exotic spices from distant shores. This luxury liner, masquerading as a mere cruise ship, was the gateway for Kanto's trade ambitions, unloading silks from Kalos's Lumiose boutiques, rare fossils from Unova's desert digs, and even Alolan malasadas that melted on the tongue like forbidden treasures. Captained by figures who navigated not just currents, but tariffs, the SS Anne bridged Kanto's industrial core to the world beyond Japan. Inspired coasts, its cargo holds brimming with Kalosian megastones destined for black market whispers in Celadon, or Galar's curry spices igniting new flavors in Fuchsia's noodle stands. Yet the true genius lay in the synergy.